Hello, and we're back live. Right, I'm hoping everybody will now find this stream because for some reason it all just shut down. I think it's my phone getting hot. Rubbish technology again. The phone overheats. Why make a phone that overheats? Why make something so rubbish technology-wise that it overheats? You know, you should think about the design of these things before they bloody bring them out. You know, they should test them. And if they're going to overheat when you're just running something as simple as YouTube, then, you know, don't bring that piece of hardware out. That's what I say. Right, people are starting to find us. Christopher says, we're going to put the phone line through the wall to the GEC 711. Well, you want, Christopher? Well, that's not the way it should be done. It should definitely not be buried inside the wall. They never were. That's not the way it was done. But you can. There's no reason you can't do it. But that's not how it was done. Dominic says, you're back. Yes. Sorry, Dominic. The phone, something happened. The phone just shut itself down. I'm doing this on. It's absolutely useless. Android is terrible. I wish you could still have proper BlackBerry operating systems. This phone is a BlackBerry, but now they run Android, and Android is useless. Apple is useless. The only operating system that's any good, basically, is Linux on a computer and BlackBerry OS on a phone. And you can't get BlackBerry OS on a phone now, unfortunately, because that did used to be good. That did. Chris says he's noticed the dial bezel is missing on his 711. Yeah, they often are, and they're particularly often missing on wall phones as well, Christopher. I don't know why it is, but I've got, well, the one I showed you earlier has got it missing. I've got no idea why, but yeah, they are often missing on wall phones. Dominic says, I've got a big bag of them in a lot. What, the bezels? Yeah, Jimmy says, hello Andy, are you on one? Now my rant's over now, Jimmy. It's, I'm sick of the rubbish technology. Dominic says, if you need any ivory dial bezels or clips or ivory dial plates, let me know. Thanks, Dominic. I will. I don't think we'll need any at the minute. We've got quite a few of various dial bezels. You can see from the ones hung up there. But then the more modern ones with the plastic bit on the back, you know, the one-piece ones that just sort of go in and then turn and lock in. But most of the stuff I've got has got them on already. But yeah, I've got to put some. I've got a lot of bezels, and I've got a lot of phones without bezels, and I've got to get around to going around them all and putting them on. Because you have to take the phone apart and take the case off to put them on, even the ones that fit from the outside. You still can't fit them on while the case is on and the dial's there. So I've got to get my act together as I'm trying to clear things up a bit here, so I can move about in the space more. Then maybe I will get round to doing stuff. But at the moment, stuff is coming faster than I can get round to sorting it. So it's taking a bit of doing. I'm still putting away bits and pieces that came a few weeks ago here. Oh yeah, here's a rare thing. A dial opal, but it's solid. An original one for a 706 or a 711 even. One of the original solid opals. There's another one. That one's got a bit of a nibble out of the side of it, but it's still probably usable. So there's a couple of those, and by contrast, this one is not solid. This one, you can see the difference there. That one is not a solid. That one is not a solid one. So there's the difference. So I've got a few of those. So yeah, stuff is coming in. I do need to sort of take an inventory of what I've got. Somebody said to me the other day, how many phones have you got there? You know something? I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. I think it's over 200. I think it's between 200 and 300, but I don't know for certain. So, so and of course it's going up all the time. I'm not sure how many there are here in total, but there's quite a lot. And then there's other things as well that are not phones, like this tester here. I've shown this before. This is a tester that would go normally between a exchange, or generally some sort of PBX, and the extensions off of the PBX, or between an exchange and one of the subscribers on the exchange. And what you can do with this, you can test the line out to the subscriber independently of the exchange, or you can test the line into the exchange by altering this button here. So that tests the line out to the subscriber, and that tests the exchange. So I've got a couple of things wired up on the exchange here because I've got it wired into a PBX. So if I pick this up, I've got to put that down, speak on, yeah, and then I dial a number. Should be able to get something to ring if I can manage to dial the right number. Come on, which one is it? That's it, 27. And that's ringing the phone sat on top of it up there. It's not up here, I don't know if you can see it or not. So that is basically ringing that through the exchange, which is a little PBX that's bolted to the side of the desk down here. Can you see that grey box? That's what it's ringing through. So that's on test exchange at the minute. And you could also theoretically do it out to your line by putting that down. So that is test exchange, that is test line, and your line out then has to be wired to something. In this case I've got an extension on the desk here, but it won't ring it because to ring the line this needs to be powered with about 50 volts, and I've not got the transformer to power it. This would normally be sat in an exchange or somewhere, and we'll be getting it, and where there'd be 50 volt power supplies lurking that you could tap into, but because it's sat here all on its own, it's not got a power supply lurking that I can tap into. So it's not fully wired up yet, so I can only test through the exchange using the PBX as power. I can't do test line yet with it. So so it's only partly wired up, but hopefully we will get there and wire the rest of it up at some point. Klaus, that's a wonderful piece of kit. Thank you very much, Klaus. It wasn't cheap. It was a couple £100. Speak021 says, I was thinking of getting a BlackBerry myself as I hate touchscreens, but not so sure if it's Android. Yeah, unfortunately they are Android now. Speak. Alright, just bear with me a second. A message that's not related to this stream at all has just popped up on my phone. Right, yeah, right, that's it. Sorry, I'm just trying to do 3 things at once again here tonight on this stream. Right, I think I'm up to date again with everybody. I think we've caught up again. So, this week, basically, this is in for more work on it. I've also got one of the very grotty phones. Remember when I unboxed all those really, really filthy phones? One of them's here, at least the internals of it is here, waiting to be cleaned up. It's still got cobwebs and spiders and things in it, but that's one that's waiting to be cleaned up. I think that's quite an old one. That. Oh yes, that's the CB phone. That 706 CB 61. Returned for refurbishment in 1977, and it must have had its feet changed at that point, because if it's 1960 it would have had flat feet, not the ones with the recess in the middle like that. So it must have had its feet changed when it was refurbed into a dial phone. So we might try and put that back as a CB unit with no dial on it. So what else are we doing? Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about all I can tell you really today. It's been a relatively quiet week for telephones this week. I've been doing other things, but yeah, all interesting stuff. Right, okay. Has anybody got any questions or anything before we go? Very quiet tonight. Quite a few people I don't think haven't found this stream after the last one that we did. I think there's a few people missing from the last one. Remember, you can catch all the back catalogue of these as well on YouTube if you want to. There's a massive back catalogue now of Andy's Shed Live on YouTube. And also a big thanks to all the patrons, all the people who have joined us on Patreon recently, who are helping to support the show and keep us going. It all helps. Normal service will be resumed next week, hopefully. We'll be back in our normal position next week, but every now and again I just do one from up here because people ask me to. Christopher says, are the bases different on the 711 to the 741? Yes, is a simple answer. It says, Andy's noticed that the screw for the finger wheel won't tighten. That's probably because it's the wrong screw in the wrong finger wheel then, Christopher, because they normally do. Or it's been over tightened and stripped. Oh, Dominic, it's Dominic who's noticed that the screw in the finger wheel won't tighten. He says, can the later plasticky dial 21s have stripped screws? I was looking at my ivory one. I would guess they can, yeah. The very late plasticky ones are not dial 21s. The very late ones are something else. I forget what number they give them. But the ones that are basically all plastic, normally a white plastic moulding with plastic bits in, are generally not actually dial 21s. I think they call them 51s or something like that. Don't say they might have to replace the whole dial if push comes to shove. You might, Dominic, it might just be that you've got the wrong screw in it though. Yeah, just double check you've got the right screw, you've not swapped them or something. It says that dial's not an original anyway, so I might as well try and find an earlier one. Yeah. What year are you looking for? Which one are we talking about? Which instrument are we talking about, Dominic? Are we looking for about 1968 or something like that? If you can, get one with all metal bits in it. Get a dial that's all metal parts. See this dial on here, on this, it's all metal parts, and you can tell that by looking through the centre there. See the big, the boss underneath, the central boss thing underneath. That's brass. Then it's a fairly old, pretty much all metal dial, or as much metal as can be metal in it. If that is plastic in the middle there, then it's one of the later dials. So look for them with a brass centre there. Oh, it's 1967 Dominic's looking for. It's the ivory one that someone mucked about with and replaced most of it with fake parts. Cool. Yeah. Have a look for a metal one, Dominic. One in the metal centre at 1967. They probably still would have been at 1967 actually. I don't think the plastic ones came out until the 70s perhaps. So yeah, have a look for a metal one. Have I got any of those 746s kicking around? Let me have a little look. Oh yeah, there's a red one here. Oh, there's a black one as well. Here's one of mine. This is a red one. It's got a modern line cord fitted to it, but this is a 1971 example. I don't know if you can see the numbers on there, but GEN 1971. This is the one I restored a while back. I've got a black one as well, and I think I've got another one somewhere, but in red and in black. But I do try and I do try and find these 746Ls. Dominic says, speaking of red phones, did you see that photo of Sir Clive's real phone? Yes, yeah, sent you, didn't you, Dominic? Yeah, interesting. Not the one that Alexander Armstrong throws off the desk in Microman, but the real Sir Clive Sinclair. I'm just putting this phone back. Yeah, I've got all kinds of strange things up here. Not just telephones, there's all kinds of stuff. There's old mechanical bus ticket machines and that buried in the corner over there. What else have we got? Oh, there's an old typewriter down here. Typewriter, anyone? In a sort of metal case. An old Empire Aristocrat. Typewriter, I don't know. Can you see it? There was a time when you couldn't give a typewriter away, but they're actually getting quite rare now. So that sits up like that. That's your thing for your carriage return. Oh. It does need a bit of oil in this, but it's quite a nice thing. I've got a much older typewriter hidden away in a cupboard as well. But yeah, this is good. It's got a metal case on it. Think how much of that would be plastic today. But not back then. That was in the days when things were made of metal. But yeah, I have to get that serviced and try using it. Something about using a typewriter, they are quite nice to use. Christopher says there were 3 Ivory 746 phones in a batch on eBay, and one was an Ivory 746L. Was it? Well spotted, Christopher. He said, do you know what dials were originally fitted to 711s? Were they coloured finger wheels or see-through finger wheels? They were coloured, Christopher. They were definitely coloured. I've got one here on the wall. If I unplug you from the power for a minute, I can probably take you for a little walk, and I will show you. Yeah, right. I've got to get around here. I'll show you one. This has not been restored yet, it just got hung on the wall for want of somewhere to put it. But that's an ivory one that's got a bit of a suntan. So it's looking a bit yellow, but actually it's ivory. So the case goes dark colour, and the dial bezel and the finger wheel stays the colour it kind of should be. If anything, the finger wheel fades a bit. That's probably a bit more white than it should be. But that's how it would have been. It's let me resume the stream this time. Cool. It wouldn't let me do that before, but it's let me do it this time. Right, what was I doing? I was showing you this, wasn't I? Right, let me put the chat back on. There you go. It looks like technical issues are going to stop us tonight. It doesn't seem to want to let me turn that camera around and show you that. So I'll do it in one shot like that. But that's basically how they should be, Christopher, originally. So just like the wall phone version, basic, just like the desk phone version, basically, just like the 706. Same dial and everything. Cool. Right. Oh. Coming through the narrow gap between all the telephones and things. Does anybody want a handset or two? There's just a handset or two down there, as you can see. And here, these are the phones that are just on this shelf. But this old box, is a thing that used to have sewing cottons in. As you can see, it was used in a shop and sold cottons, but now I believe it's full of foam bits. Yes, it is. It's full of handset caps. At least the top one. Don't know what's in the bottom one. Oh, bottom one's full of general rubbish and pens and things. But yeah, the red phones are here. What have we got here? We've got 746, 706 after it was rebuilt, so to match a 706 after it was rebuilt to match a 746, a 746 with a Mark 1 case, and a 746 with a Mark 2 case. There. And then ivory 746s up here. And this end one is interesting because this one is a Mark 1 case, all the rest are Mark 2s. And then we've just got all kinds of other things sort of kicking around as well. All sorts of stuff. All sorts of Ericsson N1900s and things here. Here's the dial bezel. That's not a real one. There you go. You see, alphanumeric, but it's printed on the surface. This is what I'm always telling you to avoid. That's a modern one because it's printed on the surface. You see, it's printed on what would otherwise be a plain bezel, and I don't know if you can see, but it has started to rub off. The printing has started to rub off, which will not have been within spec for the GPO. But all the rest of them on there, I think, are genuine, all except for that one. So that's pretty good. We'll go down here. All wall phones on the bottom there that are not on the wall. I have to sort of stack them with the handsets that way on so I can get more on the shelf. And then this is the Jubilee phone department here with some of the Jubilees and things in. And here's a couple of some of my favourites, actually, these contemporaries. I really like contemporaries. This one's interesting because this is an American one, Western Electric, and it's been painted. It started out blue and it's actually being painted, and I think it was probably painted by the phone company because it is something that they do in the States. They do take phones in and actually paint them when they refurbish them. So I think that one was actually painted by Bell or somebody in the States. But yeah, contemporaries are good. The one at the side of it, the orange one, is a British one, but that brown one is an American one. So we've got one or two things. There's one lonely Mrs. Bucket phone, as I call them, there. And a trim phone up there, and a couple of what you would think are trim lines, but actually aren't. They're actually the Spanish version. Those two. So all sorts up there. Oh, absolutely all sorts. Right, what's saying in the chat if I can turn it back on? Come on, chat. Switch on. Wesley says, any fabled red wall phones, Andy? No, Wesley. I have my doubts that they exist. I've never seen one. I've never seen one that can be proved as real from the period. They're certainly around now because Britphone make them. They make the cases. But I've never seen one that can be proved as genuinely from the sort of 60s stroke 70s. I know some people say they had them in fire stations. I didn't see one at the time. And I've not seen one where its provenance can be proved. So until I see one with my own eyes, I'm not 100% certain that such a thing exists. Christopher says you can see the switchboard. Yeah, well spotted, Christopher. It's up there behind me somewhere. Where is it? Up there. There it is. Somewhere there. Dominic says, I'm tempted to give one of my 746s either a Trumpton or Chigley dial label. Go for it, Dominic. Go for it, Dominic. If you join CNET, Dominic, if you get an ATA and join CNET, then there are numbers to call where you can call sort of oddball places like the Woolpack from Emmerdale, and you can telephone Ambridge and weird places like that, and they tend to have recorded messages on them and stuff like that. But yeah, there's all sorts of things on CNET that's like, yeah, go for it. Go for the Trumpton dial label. Who pew Barney McGrew, Cuthbert Dibble Grub, or whatever. Christopher says, I know red wall phones were made in Australia for the fire service. Yeah, you sent me a photo of one a while back, Christopher, for that. But I'm not sure that it ever happened here. Like I say, I've never actually seen one. What I do know they did in some fire stations have grey wall phones with a red dial bezel on them and possibly a red handset as well. But that would have been easy to do because they were standard parts, you see. But would they really have made red cases just for fire stations? I don't know. I really don't know on that one. Or perhaps they were painted. Perhaps they were painted. That's the other option. Couldn't tell you for certain. So the jury's out on that one. It's one that we've still not found out about. Despite this vast collection of stuff here, there are a number of gaps in it and things that are supposed to exist that I've never seen. The red wall phones, for instance, never even seen one, let alone got one. The trim phones, the Mark 1 trim phones, there's not a single Mark 1 trim phone in this collection here, because they just don't come up that often. Mark 1s, so the 721s, they just don't come up very often. The Jubilee trim phone that STC made, not got one of those. People say they're rare. They're not actually that rare. They pop up on eBay fairly regularly, but I've never managed to get one. What else is missing from the collection here? Payphone, 700 series payphone is missing. That's another gap. What else is missing? I think that's about it from the 700 series era. Go back earlier. There's lots of gaps in the collection and that. If you go back earlier, but in the 700 series era, there are still some gaps there, and it's just finding things, and stuff doesn't necessarily turn up at the right time. I tend to buy stuff in job lots because it works out cheaper that way, and particularly now I tend to buy stuff that is incomplete or broken and have to do some work on it before it's a complete phone again. For instance, the other day, Kieran, who was on here earlier, I don't know if he's still on or not, I bought a load of bits and pieces off him. In amongst the bits and pieces that I bought from Kieran was the base from an early 706. You know, just the base, the chassis and that. And I thought, I'll put that back together. And then I realised that clipped to one of the metal stanchions that holds the switch hooks was the blanking button that would go in that hole there, because that's where they used to put them when they used to fit a switch in. They just clipped the original blank inside the phone. Now that phone had long lost its original case, but because somebody had stuck that blanking button on there, that stayed there, and I could see the blanking button was green. So today I've rummaged this green case out of my my spares department, and this will be going on that phone of Kieran's to return it to being a green phone again. So I'm putting things back together now. So a lot of the phones now that I'm getting won't be necessarily original, because it might be a case made by Plessy on a base made by Ericsson or something like that. I try and get it as original as I can, but I can't always. But I try and use all original parts if I can when I'm rebuilding something like that. But there's more and more stuff coming in like that now, that comes in bits, like this thing did. It came in bits. The case didn't come with it, the handset didn't come with it. All the internals did, and the dial, and the dial bezel I think came with it as well. But all the rest of it, you know, the case and the handset, I've had to find. So there's a lot more now like that. There's a lot more stuff arriving in bits than used to. Talking of which, the yellow trim phone is away at the moment, because we're looking for a spring to go inside the case to hold the hook switch up on that. So that's away at a friend of mine at the minute, who says he's got a big pot full of springs, and he's going to go through his pot of springs and find one to fit it. But that yellow trim phone that I've put back together, that was a quarter of the price it would have been if I'd bought it as a ordinary phone. Because I bought it as a bag of bits, somebody obviously had it as a phone and taken it apart and it was mixed in a big bag of bits with a load of other things. Because I managed to pick out all the trim phone bits and put it back together, and I've got other bits with it as well for other phones, it came for a quarter of the price of what they are worth. Because if eBay is what I was looking for there, if eBay is to be believed, they're worth about £200. Because there's one on eBay now, £199, I think. Now, I don't think they're worth that much. I really, really don't. But if you want one, generally, these days, that's what you've got to pay to get one. Just because it's a different colour plastic case. It's ridiculous, really. But I got that one in bits. And I think it was in a whole bag of mashings with some more things, and it came for 50 quid. So they're not really worth now what they're going for, phones. There's so many people restoring them and selling them now. They kind of artificially inflated the price of them. And people say to me, what, I've got some phones here, what are they worth? And I say, well, about a tenner a phone. I don't even look at them. I just say, yeah, about a tenner a phone. Because that is the reality of what something that's untried and untested is worth. So yes. So that's where we go. When I used to sell them in an antique centre and do them up and sell them in an antique centre with a guarantee, I charged somewhere between £40 and £50 a phone for them, guaranteed working. Sold through an antique centre. All cleaned up, polished up, guaranteed working, between 40 and 50 quid for something like a 706 or a 746. And all original as well. None of these fake parts on them. All original parts on the ones that I sold. And I did sell quite a few, but you don't sell enough, regularly enough, and also you can't get enough in to restore to make a decent income out of it. You can't source enough, and you can't sell enough, even if you could source enough. You might sell maybe 2 or 3 a month. Well, really, you need to sell a couple every day, and you just can't do that. So to make it a really viable business, so that's why I stopped doing it, basically, and started doing videos showing other people how to restore them instead, because I suddenly realised, well, it doesn't make any money restoring them, but perhaps people would be more interested in watching the videos, how to do it themselves, and that is the case. Definitely. So it's thanks to all those people that support us on Patreon. Now that let's keep going week in and week out, doing these Andy Shed lives and doing the other videos that we do occasionally, and keep all this going. Which brings me to something else that I've been thinking about recently. Lots of people on here, me, and I know lots of you guys watching, have got collections of stuff. Not necessarily just telephones, but other things as well. You might have got a big collection of 78 records and stuff like that. Have you ever wondered what's going to happen to all this stuff in these collections? Because I wonder about that, and I'm of the opinion now where I think the next thing probably ought to be thinking about starting some sort of museum. And I've just been mulling this over in my mind, but not really giving it too much thought yet. So I want you all to give it some thought as well, and let me know what you think, because there isn't really a telephone museum now in the UK. There are museums that kind of have some phones as an aside to the main part of the museum. Avonscroft, which is a kind of museum of old buildings, has got the kiosk collection, where it's got all the old telephone boxes. But there isn't really a museum anywhere in the UK that I know to that is basically just dedicated to telephones. Um, and maybe there ought to be. Maybe there ought to be. I'm kind of been inspired by a guy on YouTube who runs a channel, Look Mum No Computer, who's opened a thing that he originally called the Museum of Everything Else, but he's changed its name to what's he calling it now? This museum is not obsolete. He's calling it now. It's not as good a name. I prefer the original name, the Museum of Everything Else. Um, but he's recently opened a sort of tech museum, and apparently it's going down quite well. But he's a long way away. He's down in, I think he's in Ramsgate. Is it Ramsgate or Margate? Down in Kent somewhere. Anyway, um, so he's a long way away. But yeah, but he's opened this little museum, and apparently he's doing all right with it. So good luck to him. Um, so I'm wondering if that's something we should think about doing for the future. Partly because we're outgrowing this loft. you, you know, a lot of the stuff isn't even out on these shelves. A lot of it isn't on display. A lot of it is packed away in boxes, because there's just more than there is shelf space, and there's no room to put any more shelves up in here. It's only a very small room, and a lot of it is packed in these green crates. You see, these are all full of telephones as well. Um, so, so that's something that I've been thinking about. Not giving it too much thought as yet, but I'd be interested to know what you think. Should we open a museum, and has anybody got any experience of doing anything like that? Um, what do you all think? Let us know in the comments, or maybe even drop me a line via the website. You'll find the contact form on there. andyshed.coldpress.net, of course, is the website if you want to drop us a thing on there. Also, if you've not done so already, please give this a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, give us a subscribe as well, because it really does help the channel to grow. It's growing steadily. It's not the fastest growing channel on YouTube, but it is growing steadily, and I am quite pleased with how it's doing. Yeah, give us a subscribe and a like on the video, because it helps the video get promoted more by Google and YouTube. The more likes and stuff it gets. So give it a thumbs up if you would, and a couple of people have done it just as I've said that as well, so that's brilliant. Right, I think that is probably almost as far as we go for today. I will just have one last check through the chat before I go any further. Right. Christopher says, can you show a junction box on Exton 1900 phone, please? I can't, Christopher, unfortunately, because I don't think any of them have got them fitted. Wesley says, if you look at Britphone's website, we were talking about Britphone and their parts earlier, a lot of parts are out of stock. I think the supply of the remanufactured parts is drying up. It may be. I don't know. The question is, do Britphone, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe somebody from Britphone who might be watching could tell us. I don't know if Britphone actually make parts themselves, or if they just bought up a load of parts that were made many years ago. Many years ago, there was a chap who was somewhere out in East Anglia, a place called Chatteris, I believe, near Peterborough, who used to take phones in by the thousand and fit new cases to them. And he had cases made in all kinds of weird and wonderful colours, purple ones and orange ones, and all kinds of strange colour schemes. and he stopped doing it because he found he couldn't get enough phones to recase anymore, because he was literally doing it by the thousands as a as a sort of full-time job, I think. And he stopped doing it, and he had a big sale and sold off all his stock of parts. So thousands and thousands and thousands of cases and that. And I wonder if Britphone went there and bought a load of stuff off him, and that's what they've been selling. Or do they actually make it themselves? I don't know. Like I say, maybe somebody from Britphone could tell us. Dominic says the museum is a great idea. There's a museum at Milton Keynes apparently, but it's only part of it. Yeah, I think it is actually Milton Keynes Museum that's got a telephone section in it. I think it's a kind of council-run museum. It may be staffed by volunteers or something. I've never been to it, Dominic. It moved a while back as well, that museum. I've never been to it. Perhaps I should have a little trip out there. Dominic says you could connect up phones to a PABX and have interactive exhibits. Yeah, the trouble with interactive exhibits is the public. They break stuff. I'm a great believer in putting stuff behind glass cases in museums, because as soon as you make it interactive, you have all kinds of problems. Wesley says, what happened to the Connected Earth collection? As far as I know, it got broke up, Wesley. That was the Connected Earth collection was basically the stuff that BT had kept as part of its historical collection. And as far as I know, when the BT Museum closed, that collection was broken up. Dominic says, to be honest, I think you'd get lots of visitors if you sold tickets to your loft and potato patch, like the Baked Bean Museum does. The Baked Bean Museum? Where is this Baked Bean Museum? Never heard of that one. Where's that, Dominic? Might have to go there. I like baked beans. I've heard of the Barbed Wire Museum. The Barbed Wire Museum in America's quite good. Where he says he understands that it's brought in. Is that related to the stuff from Britphone? So they don't make it themselves. Where he says he thinks the man who did the manufacture of parts was in poor health. I think that's probably true as well, Wesley. Christopher says we have a telephone museum here in Australia. Yeah, we don't have one in the UK anymore though, Christopher. That's the thing. Wesley says, I forgot to ask about the potatoes. They're all right as far as I know, Wesley. They're still sort of green at the minute. So I'm waiting for the tops to die off now before we can dig them up. But when we dig them up, there will be a video of digging them up. Probably find they're all full of slugs and things or something horrible like that. Dominic says, apparently there's a bloke who has a museum of baked beans in his house. It says he thinks it's in South Wales. That's brilliant. I'm going to go and Google that and find out where that is. That sounds fantastic. Stephen Jones has joined us. Hi there, Stephen. He says, I recently found your channel unsubscribed. Used to love operating a PMBX 4x18 switchboard back in the 70s. Good times. Nice to see you, Stephen. Yeah. I used to run a manual switchboard as well with all the keys on it. I think the one that I had it had 2 lines on it, 3 rows of keys. 1 row for one line, another row for another line, then the ring row of keys. Where it says, there's a field full of potatoes next to my house and they look about ready for picking. They're probably early ones, Wesley. Mine's Maris Piper, which is the main crop potato, so you don't tend to pick them until about September, maybe even October time. Stephen says, good to meet you, Andy, and the others. Yeah, good to see you as well, Stephen. Welcome aboard. We're here basically every Sunday about 6 o'clock. Well, not always here. More likely downstairs. I'm just in the loft tonight, in amongst all the telephones, because we do it occasionally, because people ask me. They say, "Can you do another one from the loft and show all the phones and that?" So occasionally we do, and there they are. Oh, although we never show all of them, because, like I say, a lot of them are piled up in like these green crates behind me here, and there's some more behind the camera that you can't see. So yeah, this is why I'm starting to think a museum's a good idea, so that we could put more stuff on display, perhaps, because there is an awful lot of it, and I'm sure it's not just me as well. I'm sure there's other people that aren't getting crowded out with stuff. But yeah, right, I think that is probably about as far as we go for today. Dominic says he's going to have a go at growing his own potatoes. That'd be excellent, Dominic. Have a go, see how you get on. Stephen says the second and fourth row were the ringers. You must have had a different switchboard to me, Stephen. I only had 3 rows on mine. It was I tell you what it was. It was National Tramway Museum where I used to operate one, Crouch in Derbyshire. They had one. They also had an old Strategy telephone exchange. At one point, they had a member of the board there who was interested in old telephones and stuff, and they had an internal telephone system. One phone of which went as far as the pub down the road, and the internal Crouch Tramway Museum telephone into that pub went automatic before the GPO one did. Jimmy says, gotta go, see you next week. Bye everyone. Bye Jimmy, see you next time. Yeah, we're about ready to wrap things up as well. Christopher says, can you show us a switchboard before you go? Says, my bedroom is full of telephones. Yeah, I can show you the switchboard before we disappear, Christopher. I'm sure we can manage that if I just unplug that. Dominic says, good for testing without using an actual phone. Hang on, what happened there? Dominic says, I recently got a phone line simulator from Abdi Retro. What is a phone line simulator, Dominic? What is a phone line simulator? I've got no idea. Why didn't you just buy a PBX like the one down here? Like that BT Minimaster, that one down there, this thing here. If you just bought one of those, just plug it in, plug your phones into it, and basically you can pick one of these up for about a tenner if you're on eBay at the right moment in time. Right, Christopher, you wanted to see the switchboard. The switchboard is up there. Had it wired up, Christopher. I've never even tried, to be honest. It looks in fairly good condition on the inside, but I've never actually wired it up. But it is there. The handle turns and everything on it. All the doll's eyes are there because they often get broken or not present. But yeah, everything is there as it should be on it. It doesn't like it when I turn the it doesn't like it when I turn the camera around, does it? It goes off every time I do that. I don't know why. So yeah, that's the switchboard anyway. Oh. Right, we seem to be having a bit of bother with the stream again, so I think this is probably a good point to call it a day for today. Thanks to everybody for watching again this evening. It's absolutely throwing it down with rain outside now, so I'm glad I'm not out there. We'll be back next week around about the same time, same place, 6 o'clock. Christopher says, before we go, says I've got 4 UK phones in use here in Australia. Well done. Does that include the new one, the new war phone? But, we'll be back, as I say, anyway, next week. Same time, same place, 6 o'clock. Give it a like, give it a subscribe if you've not done so already. And if you want to join the growing number of folk over there on Patreon, the address for that is patreon.com/Andy's Shed. Meanwhile, this week I'm going to be putting some bits and pieces up on the online shop. I'll let you know when all that's done, and hopefully that'll be done by next week. So there'll be some bits for sale next week. So yeah, you might want to treat yourself to a very early Christmas present next week. But from me, for now, until next time, have a great week ahead, and we'll see you soon. Bye everybody.